I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street.
Hey guys, it's Steve Owens here. I want to tell you a little story. My wife is in Evanston, Wyoming on temporary assignment. Since she's away from her cuddly teddy bear, myself, getting to sleep at night has been a little difficult. But luckily she found a product at a local store made by Inhale Health called electronic melatonin. Inhale Health presents a disposable vape pen that introduces melatonin directly into your bloodstream. Inhalation allows melatonin to be absorbed instantaneously, providing faster effects than possible through tablets or beverages. With just a few puffs each night before bed, a good night's sleep is just a breath away. My wife actually used this product and it did work. She was able to get restful night's sleep finally after so long. So when she was telling me about it, I told her to bring me one the next time she came home. I used it and I also loved it. It's not easy to get to sleep when your wife is 3,000 miles away. Each vape pen comes preloaded with 400 breaths, which is roughly a 1 month supply, and is already charged. You don't need to refill it. You don't need to recharge it. When you're done, simply throw it in the recycle bin and order another one. My wife and I love this product so much that I actually reached out to the company and asked them to sponsor my show. And they agreed. So here's what they're going to do. Every one of my listeners who goes to inhalehealth.com and orders any of their 7 different vape pen products is going to get a 10% discount plus free shipping when you put in the promo code FSP as in Fascination Street Podcast. So there it is, guys. That's inhalehealth.com, 10% off any of their 7 products, free shipping. Promo code FSP. So give it a shot. You'll be glad you did. And hey guys, you're welcome. What's up, guys? This episode is with San Antonio superstar chef Stephen McHugh. In this episode, we talk about Chef McHugh growing up on a farm, how New Orleans changed his life, his time working for the great chef John Besh, as well as his battle with cancer and his time on Beat Bobby Flay. We also talk about his amazing restaurant called Cured at the Pearl Brewery. But what we didn't talk about is that from now until December 31st, 2018, the James Beard Foundation is accepting nominations for the 2019 James Beard Awards. Chef McHugh has been nominated for the past 3 years for Best Chef Southwest, and I invite all of you to join me in nominating Chef Stephen McHugh from Cured in San Antonio, Texas, for the 2019 James Beard Award for Best Chef Southwest. I've made it easy to do this, guys. If you go to fascinationstreetpod.com and look to the right of the page, there will be a photo of Chef Stephen McHugh. When you click on that photo, it will take you to the 2019 James Beard Award page. You will need to create an account, but that'll only take about 60 seconds and they don't ask for much. It's really just a name and password kind of a thing. Once you've created an account, it will take you to the nominations page. From there, you'll click on the 2019 Restaurant and Chef Awards, and then complete the submission form, making sure to select Best Chef Southwest as the category. It's that easy, guys. All it takes is 5 minutes of your time, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. So thank you in advance, and now let's get into it. This is Chef Stephen McHugh from the restaurant Cured at the Pearl Brewery in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
You don't like it?
I do. I love it. That's why they always put it down.
The official water of San Antonio.
Oh,
This episode brought to you by Topo Chico. Just kidding.
my wife signed me up for this cleanse that I'm on right now, so that's what I'm drinking.
Is it like a Whole30 or
No.
something? Why?
Because I was in Chicago 2 weeks ago, and lots of debauchery, too much eating, too much drinking, and so
Good job.
this is a liver cleanse that
Gotcha.
that my friend Elizabeth Johnson set up for us from Farm Table,
Okay.
and it's brutal.
Most cleanses are.
Especially working in a kitchen all day long, and all I want to do is eat and taste and snack. And I'm a grazer, so I'm constantly picking.
Well, you would have to be. I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise you would be of immense size.
Yeah, exactly.
Chef Stephen McHugh, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me.
You got it.
Welcome to Fascination Street.
This is a cool place.
A long time ago, we first met when you opened Luke, which was a John Besh restaurant located in downtown San Antonio. My wife and I came in right after y'all opened, and we came in a few times, and every single time we came, you were, as far as I know, you did it to every guest, but you made it feel like I was special there. You came to the table every single time I came in. One time, I even was sort of having a birthday dinner for my best friend, and I had a painting commissioned for him, and you guys let me hang it in the restaurant next to the table we were going to sit in place of whatever painting was there already. And when he came around the corner and saw that painting, he started crying. So thank you for being a part of that memory.
Of course.
That was a really special thing. So thank you very much. Let's talk about you, obviously. Tell me where you came from. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in southern Wisconsin. So I'm a southerner.
So where at in southern Wisconsin?
Near Lake Geneva in a little town called Walworth. It is the home of Kikkoman soy sauce. So those listening, grab your bottles out of your fridge and turn to the back of your soy sauce, and it'll say Walworth, Wisconsin, 53184 is the zip code.
I can't believe that Wisconsin is the home of Kikkoman.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So it's with all those soy fields, you got to do something up there.
Well, yeah,
you can't raise pigs on all that soy, so they got to do something.
Not on all of it. That's good.
So, tiny little town, but started cooking in a nearby town really young, about 14, 15 years old, and just never got out of the kitchen.
Why cooking? How come you didn't go work at the local? Well, shit. Why didn't you go work at the local soybeanery?
The thing is, growing up on a dairy farm where it wasn't a working farm per se that my parents survived on it, but it was because they both had jobs. My mom was a physician, my dad was a teacher, but it was more or less a place to keep me and my 6 brothers out of trouble. So we always had chores. We always had to work. We had to deal with the garden, cut the grass, milk the cows, tend to the pigs, pick certain things out of the orchard certain times of the year. And when I was 14 and my dad said time to go find a job, I wanted to do anything but farm work. A lot of it's very unsocial. You're kind of in your own brain, just out in a field picking or trimming or doing something like that, which as I get older, I enjoy those kind of moments. But as a kid, I just wanted to be around other, teenagers. And so I got a job washing dishes early on. And then later my brother had a job as a short order cook in a bar where I started short order cooking as well. And there's something about all the free Mountain Dew you can drink and, radio blaring, the latest, greatest 90s hip hop or, whatever. And you're kind of surrounded by like-minded people, and I was never the best student in school, smart enough to get through, but never like top of the class or anything like that. And you're kind of surrounded by people who are a lot like you in that regard. And so kind of, you kind of realize that there's a place where you can excel. And I think stepping into the kitchen was probably one of the first times that I ever felt like I was really good at something. I had a good work ethic, but I just didn't know what that meant at the time. And it was one thing to work around your brothers your whole life, but it's another thing to step into a situation where you're around other people your age and you realize that you're a much harder worker than they are. And these are guys I went to high school with, but you realize that they're a hell of a lot smarter than you are, but you're out working them every single day. And it was just an amazing feeling to kind of find worth in life. So, I mean, the kitchen has always done that for me. I've always been just, maybe not the smartest person in the kitchen, but I'm always the one that's going to outwork and outthink that next person.
Do you think that working on the farm helped you develop that work ethic?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my parents did not let us get away.
I just want to pause. He really is from Wisconsin. Did y'all hear him? He goes, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, every now and then it comes out. Yeah, I haven't lived up there since I was probably 19, but I still have that kind of Wisconsin nasally thing going on all the time. But definitely, I mean, my parents were super hardworking individuals. They didn't expect anything less. I mean, things had to get done. I mean, somebody had to feed the pigs, and somebody had to go out and feed the chickens and pick up the eggs, and all those things. So it definitely it instilled kind of a sense of importance of that daily task. And a lot of times I've worked in kitchens where you're busy and things kind of get put off. I will do it tomorrow. But working on a farm, you can't do things tomorrow. You've got to do them every single day, or if you don't milk the cows, they will get sick. So I mean, those are those things that you realize that just you have to get them done.
So probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, probably longer, maybe 20 years ago, there was this big farm to table movement. You are farm to table, dude. All by yourself.
Right.
Like, you grew up on a farm, you own all these tables.
I am a farm boy who's did everything he could to not be a farm boy for a lot of years in my career, and now I find myself kind of back to just reverting back to what's important in food, what's important health-wise, not only for your body, but for your economy, your environment, all of those things.
So you grew up in Wisconsin and you're working short order cooking at this bar. When did you decide you were going to go to culinary school?
So I attempted to go to college.
Okay.
And I did a year at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. And
my gosh.
We used to call it UW0 because we just felt like a bunch of knuckleheads. But I was really into music, playing jazz. I was kind of a band geek, if you will.
Did you play guitar or what did you play?
No, saxophone.
Oh, okay.
And
did you play it shirtless on a beach?
We didn't have beaches. Well, I guess we had small beaches where I grew up. But,
Gotcha.
No. I just really was kind of, that 18-year-old that was lost. And I mean, understand that, I'm still working in kitchens, but at this point in my career, I don't even know what a chef is because I'm cooking hamburgers, making, hollandaise from powder.
Right. There's not a chef in your environment.
No, I mean, we had people we called chefs, but they were kind of like, and not to, they were great at what they did, but I didn't know, like I wasn't reading New York Times, the Wednesday. I wasn't reading cookbooks or watching, culinary.
You were working for Mel, from Mel's Diner.
Right, and that's kind of where I was. And so at this point, I don't know what a chef is and have never been around one. So I've never really, at this point, haven't been inspired by one. So I attempted to go to college because that's kind of what was expected. It's what my brothers had done, and that's what I was going to do, and that's what my friends were going to do. And I did a year there, and my grades were terrible because what I realized, and I didn't realize this until a year later I ended up in culinary school, but what I realized is that I'm not a sit down in a lecture hall with 200 other people for 3 hours and listen to somebody talk. And
not that kind of a learner?
No, and it's not going to end up in my brain. And so I think that's when I realized when I was in culinary school that it was like, wait, I'm a hands-on learner, which is why I love playing music so much, which is why I love tinkering with things and fixing things, and that's the way I learn, right? I take things apart and put them back together, just about every piece of equipment in my kitchen I've probably worked on in the almost 5 years we've been open because I can fix it, I can do it, I just fixed the smoker last week, put in a new thermocouple. So, I mean, those are the things where it's like, that I know I'm good at, and I didn't learn that until I went to culinary school. And then it was in culinary school a year later that I started to excel. It was my dad that suggested I go to culinary school because even when I left college, I went right back into a kitchen environment, went right back cooking. And he was just like, you seem to really love kitchens so much. You seem to love cooking. Why don't you do that? And super eye-opening, best advice ever kind of stuff because I just flourished and felt once again that kind of worth that I belonged.
I worked in kitchens for a long time, obviously not as long as you. So
I'm old.
When I first got into working in kitchens, it was because that was the highest paying job I could find with a GED, and I had a little boy, and but I worked at for 10 years or something like that. I met my wife there. I met my last two wives there. Yeah. But my current wife there, she was a customer. And I started off as just the guy making the tartar sauce, and then eventually I was a kitchen manager, and I was the number 2 guy in the whole store. And my son now works for. He went to Le Cordon Bleu in Austin before they folded up and left town or whatever.
Right.
And he wanted to come here. You met him before he went to culinary school, and he wanted to come, but they changed the schedule, whatever. So I understand what you mean about finding a place where you could excel, where you felt like you were good at something. Because up until then, I was good at nothing. Yeah. And the only reason really that I got out of it is just because of the hours. And like I said, I'm on my 3rd marriage, and that has largely to do with the amount of hours that it takes.
Well, it also was a good. I'm sure it was a high-paying job back then. It's less and less so these days.
That's true.
Hiring has become a real issue and a real problem, not just here in San Antonio, but all over the country. There's a cook shortage, kind of kitchen help shortage, dishwashers, all of that, and I think there are a lot of factors, in that. I think one, more and more every day, we live in an instant gratification society where people want to get appreciated and paid and all those things right here, right now. So they want those jobs, those high-paying jobs. That's everything in our lives, from our news to the way we work to, now you can buy a car from a vending machine now. You know what I mean? It's just part of the society. I think our industry has relied for many years heavily on foreign labor, and that's becoming less and less frequent to find in today's
current political climate.
It's just
can't work here if you can't get here.
Right, you can't work here if you can't get here, and even working here has become harder. More and more, like my wife who works HR, she does all the I-9 checkups, the requirements, all of those things for everybody. For everybody in the restaurant. So she works full time in the restaurant as well. Mostly back office stuff, HR, billing, payroll, dealing with employee issues, a lot of administrative stuff, things that really free me up to just do what I'm good at, So it's a good relationship, it's a good partnership. But it's become harder to find people. And the other thing is, I don't think I ever would have left a job had I not worked there for at least a year, if not 2 years. And now, 3 to 6 months seems to be kind of the average for a lot of people, and they're bouncing to the next great restaurant that's opening. And like I said, that's not just here. I think it's kind of all over. I get resumes from 22, 23-year-olds that have 6 or 7 restaurants on it. And it's like, goodness, you've only been doing this 3 years. How do you have 6 restaurants on your resume already? And they're all good restaurants, and you've bounced around Austin and you've bounced around San Antonio, and what are you going to do? Bounce out of here in 6 months and on to the next great spot? So
in 6 months, you're barely learning your position.
Yeah, you're ready to kind of make the next jump over on a station.
So many things to learn in a restaurant.
I'm still learning. I've been in
sure.
20-something years, or 30 years? Crying out loud, maybe. Almost 30.
Man, you are old.
Yeah. So, I think it's a tough thing, and then I think it's one of the last kind of bastions where AI hasn't really taken over in fine dining yet. You're starting to see it in a lot of the, the McDonald's and the short order places, but there's I've seen restaurants that try to do iPad ordering and these things, and I don't know. I think I enjoy meeting the waiter and that exchange and developing that rapport, and I enjoy watching a waiter read a table and understand that maybe my wife are out for a quiet meal and we don't want to be bothered, or sometimes I'm very chatty and I could be in a different city and we're traveling and I want to know a little bit about the area, and I appreciate when a waiter understands that as opposed to just ignoring and yeah. So I kind of enjoy that the back and forth between servers and bartenders and managers, and in a lot of instances when you're dealing with iPad ordering or kiosks or things like that, you lose that, and so then that place loses its personality. Even in a McDonald's, I think if you walk up to a kiosk and place your order and then somebody brings it out, they've lost something there that you're used to and that you've kind of grown accustomed to and grown up around, So.
My wife and I went to Paris a couple of years ago, and the only reason that I wanted to go to McDonald's is because I wanted to order a Royale with cheese. Right? And so we go in there, and it was a kiosk. It was like There was no customer interaction. It was the weirdest,
Yeah.
most sterile and cold and unwelcoming thing that I had ever seen.
You know, we're probably not far away from bringing back the automats, you know, where you'll just walk up and drop some change into a little slot and open the door, and there it is. It's becoming that cold in a lot of areas, you know.
Yeah.
So I think restaurants will be it'll be a hard fight. You know, I don't think you'll ever not see cooks or servers in a restaurant in a fine dining setting. I think there are a lot of other industries that are going to the wayside, but not here. You know, not in this industry.
So what culinary school did you go to?
I went to the Culinary Institute of America in upstate New York. I had an older friend in high school who had gone, and so I was aware of it.
Is that person still in the business?
I believe so. We don't keep in touch, but I believe so. And so I was aware of the school, and then I had another older friend in high school who had gone to Kendall College in Chicago, which is another great culinary school. And so I had applied at both, and I got accepted to both. And what I realized was when I went to University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, I was too close to home. And Chicago at that time, you know, Chicago was only a quick drive from where I grew up, probably an hour and a half, right? And so I guess my thinking was, let's get as far away from tiny town Wisconsin as I can and, you know, go out there and do it for real. Because when I was at Oshkosh, I could come home on the weekend, or I could take summer break and come home and dick around. And
There's a certain amount of security knowing that you can do that.
You know, and so, you know, I'm out at Culinary Institute of America at CIA there, and, you know, we'd have a 3-week summer break. Well, I just couldn't afford to get home, take the flight. So I'd stay there and I'd work, or I'd study, or I'd hang out in the library, or do those things, you know. And so it was, I guess for me, like, I could have went to either school, and I love Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities, but it was just, I needed to get away from not only where I grew up, but like my friends who all were still living like within, like, you know, Madison, Chicago, Milwaukee, you know. I just needed to kind of go off and do that. And my parents were very supportive of that. They really wanted me to kind of get out and go see the world, just as all my brothers, you know. They didn't want us to just stick around, hang around town.
Do they still have that farm?
No. They sold it a few years back, and they had both were in declining health and have both since passed. But they had sold it, and it was being only an hour and a half from Chicago, it was worth a lot of money for somebody who wanted a, you know, weekend getaway retreat,
Right.
50 acres. You know,
Sure.
Everybody wants 50 acres to just have for a weekend home. So they did really well. It was their retirement. It was a good investment for them.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're in culinary school, and I know that eventually you made your way down to the New Orleans area. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
When you're in culinary school, like at the CIA, they have halfway through the program what they call an externship. And it's basically you go out for 5 months and go work somewhere, and you get real life experience. So if you can imagine, all my friends now are from like New York, New Jersey, and most of them are heading back to New York, New Jersey, where they used to work before they went to CIA. Where are you going to work? Well, I'm going to go work at my friend's restaurant in Tarrytown, or I'm going to go work in, you know, I used to work for this chef in New York City. I'm going to go back there and do my externship. So I looked at it as an opportunity to once again get away and go travel. I had a friend of mine in culinary school who had at one point in his life lived in New Orleans, and he said, "Man, if you really want to get out and go see something, go to New Orleans."
New Orleans is wildly different than
Yeah,
Wisconsin
and
or New York.
And I had applied at restaurants in Hawaii, California, and New Orleans. Like, I was trying to go to the tips of the world.
Yeah, you
it
were.
felt like, because I just wanted to continue to kind of see what was out there. And at this point, I'm 20 years old, and I'm in my beat up Volvo station wagon driving down to New Orleans with my friend who was going down there with me, and he was going down there to visit friends and family, and then he was leaving, so it wasn't like we were down there together. But I got a job at the Hilton Riverside on Poydras Street there in New Orleans, which at that time, I'd never worked in a hotel before, right? That was going to be, I chose a hotel because it was going to be completely unlike anything I'd ever experienced. At that time, it was the largest hotel, I think, east of the Mississippi. I forget how many hundreds of rooms, 500 or something. I mean, just crazy, right? Huge hotel, multiple kitchens, multiple chefs. And it just, New Orleans got a hold of me, restaurants got a hold of me, kitchen, ingredients, everything. That 5 months was the most important, probably 5 months in my career. It just opened my eyes to a world of possibilities, things I didn't even learn and see in culinary school. It wasn't even just about the food, it was about the people, it was about the place, it was about the architecture, the culture, it was just everything, the history.
And the scope of such a big hotel. I mean, all those rooms, and they also had a bar, and I'm sure they had a restaurant. And
you take a very, I'm not going to say, privileged, but you're going to take a very stable white kid off a farm out of, nowhere, Wisconsin, put him smack dab in the city of New Orleans with people of all races and all economic backgrounds and hardships, and you're just, I tell you what, it helped shape me as a grown-up in this world. Those 5 months weren't enough, so I went back to school after I finished my externship, and when I graduated, I went right back to New Orleans. I just wanted to be back there. It was so fascinating, and so it definitely got under my skin and got into my soul, and I just couldn't leave it. I wanted to be back there as soon as I could.
And you stayed there for a long time, right?
Almost 15 years before I moved to San Antonio, and just had an amazing 15 years there. Met my wife, who's from there. Have so many great friends there. We go back several times a year. We were back in January. We're going back in June.
Oh, that's why the cleanse. So you can tear it up when you get back there.
I've got a lot scheduled between now and then. Heading to Austin. I'm heading to Atlanta next week. Memphis the week after that. So I've got a lot going on in the next few weeks. So I've got to be good. But we go back quite a bit. It's always fun to go back. It's different every time we go back, and it changes. And it, for the good and for the bad in some instances. But it'll always be a part of us. My wife and I, we just absolutely adore that city. And I grew up there as a chef. I grew up there as a first moved there as a 20-year-old and didn't leave until I was, I think, 35. So
those are some pretty formative years.
Yeah, it just shaped me as a person, my thoughts, my beliefs, as well as being raised by two great parents. But I hear people, that I grew up with complain about how good they don't have it, and I think to myself, if you'd only just go see the rest of the world, you'd realize that you got it pretty damn good. It's a shame, but I think going out and traveling, no matter what industry you're in, is going to shape the way you think about things, and also the way you think about other people. I learned a lot about, I became more empathetic towards people and understand what it's like to be them, even though I don't know what it's like to be them, by living in New Orleans. Right. There's a very huge scale. You've got a lot of people on one side, and you've got a lot of people on the other side, and then you've kind of got cooks and workers and people in between. But it's an interesting place.
How long did you work for the Besh Group? Is that what they're called?
Mm-hmm. So I worked with Besh almost 10 years when I was down there.
Are y'all on good terms?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I left in 2012, and we talked several times a year. It's important in this world to have mentors. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of young people running out and opening restaurants that maybe don't have that pedigree. For as many things as I learned good from John, I learned a lot of bad as well, meaning like
what not to do.
The pitfalls.
It's a hard business, especially in this town. They used to say, long before you got here, they used to say that San Antonio was a proving ground because there was so much good food here. If you can open a restaurant and it lasts here, then you can do it anywhere.
Wow.
They used to say that about the restaurant industry because it's just so hard because the food here is so good.
Yeah, and I think San Antonio has a lot of parallels to New Orleans in that regard because locals are diehard here, just like in New Orleans. And so a lot of outsiders would come into New Orleans and try and open restaurants, and it would just be like, I don't want to go eat at that. I'm not eating at that guy's restaurant,
Right.
So
he's not from here. He doesn't know us.
That was important for me when I moved here, that whether it was my own restaurant or opening one for John, that we were as honest about who we were, trying to be local, not trying to act like some outside company that was just here. And so that was an important thing. That was why I would try and touch the tables all the time, and that's why I tried to develop those relationships with people and my staff. And it's interesting, but I had managers who came with me from New Orleans to help me open the restaurant, and after several months I was like, they've got to go back to New Orleans because they're high and mighty, and I didn't appreciate the attitudes, because it was just this, New Orleans is so much better than, if you really look and if you really open your eyes and you look around, you see tons of parallels. I mean, hell, both cities turned 300 this year, and they're both at one point Spanish settlements, and then at one point have this huge Canary Island and German influence and French influence. And so you look at it and you go, wow, there's a lot of going on. There's a lot of great architecture. There's a lot of similar histories. There's a sense of place, that you don't get from a lot of cities. Sometimes you go into a city, I'm not going to name them, but you go into a city and it feels like it could have been built 10 years ago.
Right.
You don't, where's the history in this town, and you feel that both in New Orleans and San Antonio. And it's just two different places that share a lot of that same history.
So we're going to skip around a little bit, but when John Besh decided to open a restaurant outside of Louisiana, why San Antonio?
So at that point, John had 2 restaurants already in 2 different hotels in New Orleans. One was Luke at the Hilton on St. Charles, and another one at the Roosevelt. So he had 2 restaurants and 2 hotels already in New Orleans run by the same company. And that company had said, hey, John, we've got this hotel we're building in San Antonio. Would you like to? So he'd already had a really good relationship with the ownership group of these hotels. And so It was a good fit for him. It was, they had great history. It wasn't like he was just stepping into this unknown project, 8 hours away and with people he didn't know. And
I was a little bit confused why San Antonio was chosen.
Yeah.
So thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah. And there was a lot of love given to New Orleans during Katrina by the mayor and the people of San Antonio. When other cities were saying, please stop coming here, we can't take you, Mayor Harburger at that time said, we're open, we will take anybody and everybody. And I think there was a lot of love for San Antonio at that point. Not only were the Saints here, but a lot of people came here, stayed here, and never left. My pastry chef who works for me right now is one of those people who came here in 2005 and never left.
What made you decide to come along?
So at that point, working with John, I had been kind of his project guy. I was, in all sense of the word, I was probably his corporate chef. I was the guy that helped him, open restaurants, get things going. I helped him with his first book. I'd helped him with a product line. I was just doing kind of a lot of things for him. I was kind of his go-to guy, and it was important that if we were going to do a Luke here, it had to, and I was running Luke in New Orleans, and it was important that we do it right and not undercut it or cheapen it, like tends to happen sometimes with chained out concepts, and so I guess the idea was kind of an open-ended exit, meaning, come here, let's get it established, let's get things going, and then see what the next move is. And I think at that time, John and his partners had really thought about the fact that they could probably take this concept to maybe every major market in Texas. Because it was, at the time in New Orleans, it was a great concept, and it was his strongest concept. Like, just, that was the moneymaker. So I could see a Luke in Dallas or a Luke in Houston and one in Austin, and that was the idea. And so I came here to open the restaurant and get it going. But then a lot happened.
When you came, did you sell your house?
I did, but for other reasons.
Oh, okay. Because, you had said it was open-ended, so I was just wondering if you kind of kept your house there just for when you went back.
No, I did sell it, but that was because I'd also gotten sick.
Oh.
Right before I moved. Probably almost 3 months before we moved, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. And
why did you still move?
Because my doctor in New Orleans said, live your life. This isn't a death sentence.
So by the time you got diagnosed, what stage was it in?
3.
Stage 3 lymphoma?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I guess that's right around the time that you first got onto our radar? You know, coming here and opening Luke. I'm sure there was a lot of. You were probably here for a year before y'all opened. I have no idea, but I'm sure it was a while.
About 6-7 months.
Now, without disparaging anybody, I do want to say that you had talked about one of the reasons that you came is that y'all wanted to do it right, to open Luke, like the right way. When you left, it was noticeable in that establishment.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the reason that it's not around now, but I feel like it kind of might be. I know it's a hard job, and whoever took over for you, or however many of them there was, I'm sure nothing bad on them. It didn't, whatever it was, it didn't work.
It is a hard job, and one of the things that's the hardest about growing a company and expanding is culture. You know, I had come up, when I started working with John, he was opening his second restaurant. I actually opened it for him at Harris, and subsequently helped him open, at that point, well, we reopened August after Katrina, and then we opened Dominica, Luke, La Provence. You build kind of from within, right? You promote people kind of up through the pipeline, and you have this culture because they understand, one, the expectations, but two, they understand the way things get done. You know, the way things are ordered, and the HR policies and all of these things. And so I think coming here, it felt very seamless because I had already at that point done 8 or 9 years of working in this company, where it kind of helped establish a lot of the protocols and just the way you treat people and
the culture,
right? And that's the hardest thing to teach. So then when you pluck somebody from outside the company to run one of your establishments, sometimes that gets lost. I always say that, you know, especially to our servers, that it's our job to exceed our guests' expectations. But you can't exceed them if you don't know what they are. And so if people are walking into Luke with an expectation that's not the same as the people running it, well, then kind of a loss in translation there. It's not that it's a terrible restaurant. It's just not what people were expecting. They grow accustomed to a certain way of being taken care of, or a certain menu or a format or whatever, you know, or their favorite server, you know, and if those things get lost, then you either need to rebrand or kind of, you know, shut down and redo it and start over, or somebody's got to pick up right where the last person left off. And so I think that happens.
So sometimes things do get lost in translation. And do you kind of think that, you know, I don't even want you to speculate on what happened. I mean, it didn't work and everybody moved on. That's fine. So let's talk about why you left. I know you left on good terms. You didn't leave because of anything that happened over there. You left to open this place.
Yeah. So San Antonio got under my skin a little bit, and
because you didn't leave.
More and more I was thinking, I kind of like it here. And you know, my dad was a history teacher, and I've got a little bit of that in me that I kind of enjoy learning and understanding, and you know, going to the missions and hanging out at the Alamo and just getting to know. And so at that point, I was really getting excited about staying here in San Antonio and looking at what that looked like, you know, whether I was staying with John or was I stationed here and kind of bouncing around Texas, opening Luke's for him, and really an opportunity kind of just presented itself. And
so I'm just going to assume that means some investors came to you and said, hey, or...
Well, it actually started with the conversation I had with Johnny Hernandez, who's a good friend, and he goes, you know, hey, I don't know if you're interested or not, but, you know, the people over at Pearl are looking for new operators, and, you know, if you want to have a conversation with them, just let me know. And
so
that was that.
Just to clarify, the Pearl Brewery was a brewery. Do they still make beer here? They don't, right? So Pearl was a San Antonio-based beer company that I want to say was here for like 100 years or something. It was a long time.
Just over 100, yeah.
And they sort of revitalized the Pearl Brewery area, and so there's a bunch of shopping and there's a bunch of food and just different. It's a whole new area of town, you know, at this time, and so that's what he's talking about right now, because there's listeners all over the world. Everybody doesn't know what that is. So go ahead.
So that kind of sunk into my head for a few days. I kind of, you know, I talked with my wife about it, and I said, you know, I don't know if this makes sense, and we talked about it, and I said, well, you know, what's it hurt to just have a conversation, because I understood what they were trying to do here. You know, they were bringing in first-time operators because it could have been very easy to chain the place out or to bring in a bunch of heavy hitters, but they were looking for, you know, Kit's vision, who's the owner of all of this, was to bring in people who kind of really needed a leg up and were going to be a good fit for this kind of experiment, really, that he has, and it has still going. So took the meeting and had a great conversation, and you know, met their CEO at the time, Ken Halliday, who was also a recent blood cancer patient who was in remission at the time, and so we kind of had this kinship of like almost losing our lives and now kind of restarting things anew. And so it was just a really, I don't know, it just seemed like a lot of things were making sense. And they were instrumental in helping find the investors and instrumental in helping build the place and choose the right architect and all of those things that you don't learn, that you never learn coming up through kitchens. You don't know how to pick an architect or what contractor to go with or what kitchen supply company is better than the other, and you know, so they were very helpful in kind of driving that, and I've learned a ton working with them and being around them, and it's helped keep my head above water and keep me out of a lot of trouble where I see a lot of independent restaurateurs get in trouble.
So let's talk about the concept.
Yeah.
First of all, why is it called Cured?
So we cure a lot of meats, a ton of meats, literally probably a ton of meats. And but I'm also, because I'm a blood cancer survivor, it was just kind of a way of saying, hey, you know, life's starting anew. It's a celebration of those things, and it's a celebration of just an understanding of where food comes from. You know, everything is driven by our providers, our ranchers, our farmers, our fishermen, our dairies, you know, everyone we deal with, right down to where we get our honey from. We try to be as smart as we can. I really just think it just comes down to an understanding of where food comes from.
Do you think that is important to you because you grew up on a farm? Think that informs it in any way?
I think so. I think, you know, I always knew where my food came from when I grew up.
The backyard.
Yeah, you know, or a neighbor would drop off corn, or you'd get. We got oranges and grapefruits in December from a friend of my dad's who would ship them up from Florida. You know, I mean, during citrus season, you know, there is an actual citrus season. I think people just think they should always be able to get oranges whenever they want. You know, and,
that goes back to the instant gratification.
Yeah,
you don't have to wait for anything.
Right. You know, why do I want to wait till strawberry season when I can have strawberries year round? And there are restaurants. You know, I can go into, you know, restaurants in the middle of January and have strawberry shortcake. You know, where do these strawberries come from? I don't know. They came off a truck. And so it just kind of became this thing where it's like, okay, let's have a better understanding of where our food comes from, and we're going to have to deal with local producers who we believe in are doing best practices. You know, a lot of it also is about keeping our money local, supporting our economy, as opposed to some farm in Chile that is growing raspberries. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's take care of each other here.
I can't speak for Wisconsin or upstate New York, but it sounds like those are some of the qualities you talked about of New Orleans and of San Antonio that they kind of had in common, which you kind of jived with.
I've said this before, but Katrina taught us a lot of lessons, because the big guys will hate to hear me say it, but the big box providers weren't there. You know, those big trucks that sell anything and everything, they had their doors closed. And if you want to reopen a restaurant, you got to find food. And so we had local fishermen, we had local farmers, we had a gentleman that would drop off, you know, hey, I got 10 chickens if y'all want them. We'd be like, yes, we will take them. Because when you're trying to open a restaurant and you're scrounging for supplies, you're excited because you got your hands on a bag of arboreal rice so you can make a dish. You know, I mean, when we reopened the restaurant in August after Katrina, I think we only had about 5 or 6 items on the menu. One of them was like jambalaya. If you know anything about Restaurant August, it's probably, you know, at that time, it was probably the best restaurant in the city of New Orleans, serving jambalaya, right? But this is what we had. We had fried chicken. You know, we'd make bread pudding for dessert. You know, I'm serious. I probably have a copy of the menu somewhere. I don't even know. I'm not sure what I did with it, but it's like 5 or 6 items on a handwritten menu because that's what we had.
I feel like New Orleans cuisine and Cajun food is sort of a lot of the recipes and the dishes are based on what you had available at the time. I mean, look at remoulade or remoulade, however you say it. That's just everything you have left over.
Right. It's leftover seafood. You know,
right.
I think, you know, the best cuisines are built out of necessity. If you think about people are, you know, doing amazing things with alligator, and you look at an alligator, you're like, who the hell wants to eat that? Right. You know,
it's around,
but it's here.
It's there. Right.
It's the first person I ever, you know, we grew up with crayfish. We didn't do anything with them. We just kind of like fucked with them, and you know, built a little aquarium, and they'd swim around. But then I come down to New Orleans, and people are eating them by the sackful, and you're like, wait, you can eat those things, you know?
Right.
So, you know, some of the best cuisines are, you know, I mean, there was a time where only slaves ate lobster.
Yeah.
You know, because they were considered bottom feeders. They were considered
the cockroaches of the sea.
Right. They pretty much are, you know. And so, and you look at a lot of slave cooking, you know, just poor people cooking. It's some of the best food out there.
I mean, sassafras.
Yeah.
Who? Why?
Well, yeah.
Who would ever?
Exactly. I mean, look at a cactus paddle and tell me if it looks edible.
That's right.
And here we've got that same thing here in San Antonio.
Yeah.
You know, you're eating cactus, you're eating mesquite beans, you're eating, you know, the natives are eating prickly pears. And
I ate rabbit that you could, at your restaurant.
Yeah.
I mean,
we have it on the menu here right now.
Oh, okay. There you go. I know that I don't want to take up all of your day. I know you've got things to do. So how did you get into the Food Network? I know that you were on, I think, the first season of Beat Bobby Flay. And I think you were... Because the way Beat Bobby Flay is it's two chefs go head-to-head, and then whoever wins that battle has to fight Bobby Flay.
Yeah.
Now, the guy that you fought, if I remember right, he was about 9 feet tall.
Right.
And, I don't know, a guitarist or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I lost.
First of all, I know, it broke my heart. I almost broke my TV that day. How tall are you?
5'9".
You're 5'9", and this other guy, his name was...
I don't remember.
I want to say it was like Brian Tyler or something like that. Sorry, Chef Brian Tyler, something like that. But he's like 6'7" or 6'9" or something crazy. And you guys looked ridiculous standing next to each other.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. And it was a great episode. And like I said, I almost broke my TV. But because I think the first time I met you, I don't think you had a publicist or agent or whoever.
No, well, I just who through John, but it wasn't, when I was working for John, it wasn't about me, and that was fine because I, you know.
Right. Because you were working for him.
Yeah, and sometimes I wish it, even running Cured, it wasn't about me, you know, I wish it was more about everything else that we're doing. But sometimes people want to meet me, you know, and it's great, you know, I mean, I love that, you know, because we're building our own culture here now, you know, we're building that, and that's great because that's what keeps people coming back. Is it's about, you know.
You guys have been here 5 years.
About 4.5 right now, but you know, it's about my general manager and my somm and my chef de cuisine and my wife who's here, and you know, it's about seeing all those people and having those recognizable faces. So more and more, I'm trying to not always have to be the person here,
right.
And which is great. You know, I mean, they do a great job of owning their place in this restaurant. So yeah, you know, going on Beat Bobby Flay taught me a lot about that kind of world. I'd done a little bit with John. I did Iron Chef with John.
You were one of his sous.
Yeah,
because on Iron Chef they bring 2 people.
You bring 2 people. Yeah. I did that. But going on there was different. I don't want to say I shouldn't have done it because it's brought in a lot of people. I mean, to this day, that when they run reruns, the people will say, "Oh, I saw you on Beat Bobby Flay. Oh my God!" Yeah. The only reason I think I shouldn't have done it is because I did it a week before we opened the restaurant, and I was stressed.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, and I was frazzled. And so my wife and I had to go.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
We were in Brooklyn a week before this restaurant opened. I wasn't sleeping. My brain was fried. You know, we were still putting together tables. We were still waiting on chairs to be delivered. We had, you know, kitchen that was being finished out. We had a punch list that was like 200 things long about, you know, this outlet's broken or that, you know, and trying to get all those things accomplished. And then my wife and I were
the windows are only curved on the outside, which just makes it really weird and hard to clean.
Exactly. So there was a lot of things like that. And so no excuses, because I tell you what it taught me is that as a chef, and everyone's different. John was one of the smartest people on his feet, quick thinking, quick talking, very witty, pull a dish out of his head like that. And what I realized is that it takes me, before I change the menu, it usually takes me at least a week, where I've got to test recipes and I've got to go through it. And, I'm meticulous in that sense that I want it to be perfect, or I put it on the menu, And what I learned is that I'm not very good at just kind of, all right, go cook, that whistle blows and you've got to, pull something out of your ass right now. And that's fine. Not everybody's like that. And I don't know if that necessarily makes you a bad chef, that you can't come up with something off the top of your head.
I don't think it makes you a bad chef if you're not good at game shows.
Right, exactly. In some of these shows, I look at like the challenges, and I think to myself, well, a chef would never be in that situation ever.
My wife, we're big Food Network people, and she hates watching Chopped because half the time the basket is a bunch of things that are already cooked, or
Right.
they're already a dish. And she was like, "Why would a chef ever?
Yeah.
Why would a chef ever break down 3-day-old bread pudding to make something else out of it?"
Right. Yeah,
So-
I'm the same way. I watched a show one time where they had to cook something, yet they had no kitchen tools, and they had to figure out how to grate cheese on a metal rack. I was just like, well, that would never happen in real life. So why is that?
Right.
Why does that make somebody better than the other? And so, and that's fine. It's drama, it's television, it's reality. I get it.
television, yeah.
I get it. It's enjoyable to watch. It's definitely not enjoyable to do.
It doesn't look fun.
I enjoy being on camera. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy having conversations. I don't think I would never say I'll never do TV. If the right show came along that was a little bit more substantive. And we do a ton of work here at the restaurant with local nonprofits and charities, and so I'd love to do like a television show that focused a little bit more on that kind of thing, as opposed to challenging each other to deep fry a chicken, or whatever. It's
Just a
like,
chicken comb.
yeah, and just be like, what are we
rooster
doing here?
comb, yeah.
What are we doing here? But it's a fun experience, and like I said, it's amazing. Because at the time you're thinking, well, why am I doing this? I'm not getting paid. I know Bobby Flay's probably making a ton of money doing this. Why am I doing it? But then the years go by and you realize like how many people, like the server will come up to me and say, "You have time to go talk to Table 12? They saw you on Beat Bobby Flay." I'm like, Jesus, I filmed that in 2013. They're still airing it? Yeah, they're still airing it. They just saw it like 2 weeks ago, and they traveled here from Houston to meet you. And just be like, well, I'll be damned. It does pay off, and it does work. And so it's not that it's a terrible thing. I just realized that I'm not very good at it. So
Gotcha. So as of right now, no real plans to do any other. I mean, if it happens, it happens. But
yeah,
it's not really on the radar. Because I talked to Jason, to Chef Daddy,
yeah,
and he sort of dabbles here and there with them. And so that's all.
No, I mean, they reach out to me quite a bit. I was asked to do the Iron Chef deal that Jason did, and I turned it down because, like I said, my brain just doesn't work like that, and I have to understand my limitations and my, where my strengths are at.
Your wheelhouse.
Yeah, and it's not lifting the cover off of something and going, all right, now figure out how to cook it.
Yeah.
And some people are very good at it. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can cook just about anything. I probably need more than 30 minutes, though, to do it right.
You want to know a secret? So does Alton Brown.
Right.
Like the biggest, the most judgmental judge of that network, when he used to do his show Good Eats, it would take him 3 weeks
Yeah.
of research and
Yeah.
and so I mean not everybody's good at that, and everybody doesn't
Yeah.
need to be. I want to get you out of here. Tell me how your health is.
Great. Yeah. I'm 43 now. I'm probably healthier at 43 than I was at 23.
Because of this stupid cleanse.
Well, just because I go to the gym. When you're 23, you can eat everything you want and not work out and drink all night and party all night and smoke cigarettes and wake up 3 hours later and go to work. At 43, you learn your limitations, and you still drink, but you know that, a glass of water in between every beer is probably a good thing. Or, I go to the gym quite regularly. I get better sleep, all those things. I try to take time for myself. We reflect a lot more. My wife and I do. We try to travel as much as we can, just because it's so healthy for everything about you. So health is great. You get regular checkups, and happy with where we are here at Cured, and have no complaints in life. I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago and didn't bring home the James Beard Award, and a friend of mine asked me if I was upset, and I looked at him and I said, what the hell do I have to be upset about? Because I didn't win a medal? I said, there are a lot worse things in life. And so, yeah, life is good.
Good. That's good to hear. You keep saying my wife. What's your wife's name?
Sylvia.
Yeah. McHugh?
McHugh. She doesn't like being in the spotlight as much as...
Well, that's why it was just a quick mention at the end.
Yeah.
Tell everybody where they can find you. Are you on social media? Do you guys have a website?
curedatpearl.com. All our restaurant handles are at Cured at Pearl, which is confusing to some people because you have to spell the second at. In today's day and age, they're like, you have two at symbols in your handle? And I'm like, no, the second one is spelled AT. That's a weird concept for a lot of people.
So that's the social media tag is at Cured AT Pearl.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then...
yeah, that's wildly confusing.
And then my personal one is at Chef Steve McHugh. Both Twitter, Instagram, and then I think it's just Steve McHugh, Facebook. But yeah, I try to post as much as I can, and usually somebody has to remind me to post, because I get caught up in things. And that, I put 3 new dishes on the menu last week, and I haven't posted any of them, we have somebody who works with the restaurant. She does a lot of our house posting, and she'll be like, you need to post on your personal one every now and then too. I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. So.
Well, we're in our mid-40s. We're not used to, we didn't have to do all this.
No.
So it's all kind of new.
My goal in life is to one day not have a cell phone.
Huh. Is that same goal also to not have a restaurant? You have to have a phone, dude.
Maybe when I'm 85, I'm done with phones.
You know what? Just be the only guy in town with a pager. Have a beeper. I'll call you when I feel like it.
Exactly.
Like Chef Stephen McHugh, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Congratulations on still being in remission. Do we still say that, or do we say cured?
Cured sounds better than remission. At least for a restaurant, it does.
All right, cool. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning, Detective Lynn. It has been 120 hours since your last login. Current grid load is 192 per terabyte. System not detected. System. Current trans time is 1,800 hours and 34 minutes. Maintenance outage for node 3.1.1 scheduled for 0400 hours and will persist for 38.9 minutes. Destination loci. Synchronized. Insertion in 3, 2, 1.
Rumor is there's a new V-drug experience in the trance. Something mind-bending and a little bit deadly. But I didn't have to tell you that. Things aren't adding up. You noticed all the burners going missing lately? How about the bodies showing up in the little dark corners of the city? I've seen this before, and it's why I'm here now, Detective Lynn. How about I tell you a scary story?
The Trance, a Phil Rossi podcast experience. For details, episode downloads, and story extras, visit www.patreon.com/Phil Rossi and sign up today.
Hey guys, just a quick break in here to let you know that I'm a member of Phil's Patreon page, and I think you should be too. So here's what I'm going to do. Everybody who signs up this month, October 2018, to join Phil's Patreon page, send me a screenshot of the Welcome to Phil Rossi's Patreon page to fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com and include your mailing address, and I'll send you a sweet surprise thank you from Fascination Street Podcast.
Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.